I have David Google to be followed by Carmen Guzman Lambert.
Hi,
Hello.
I'm David, and I am a rent-stabilized SRO tenant, and I live in a building, 207 West 85th Street in the Upper West Side, and I've lived there for 17 years as an SRO tenant, and I am only one of 4 SRO tenants left in my building, and it's a 91-unit SRO building. And you probably wonder why. Well, it's net leased by a musical theater acting school known as the American Musical Dramatic Academy. And what they do, they make a lot of money having their students live there. They have 3 semesters a year. And not only do they make a lot of money off the tuition, they make a lot of money off charging their students there. So I'm one of the holdout tenants, and just thank God for Larry Wood of the Goddard Riverside Rent Project. Thank you so much. And I guess I just want to thank you, the board, because as an SRO tenant, I can afford to live there just barely. You see, I'm a working man. I'm a low-wage earner, and I can actually sort of afford to live there, but my landlord makes it difficult. But I'm so glad for the Goddard Riverside Rent Law Project. They really helped me. And yeah, I just want to thank you again. If you could keep it at 0% for SRO tenant. My landlord renovates the building a lot, and when I live there, I work odd hours, and they're often, there's debris in the hallways, there's all kind of notices they're doing construction and everything, but they, obviously they don't like us. There's only 4 tenants left, but we're the holdouts, and I just think that we're often forgotten. So if you ever walk by that building and you see students there, there's actually SRO tenants there, and the students, they don't realize it's an SRO. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Carmen Guzman Lambert, followed by Ruben Florencio. And yes, I'm sorry, Miss Guzman Lambert, yes.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Carmen Guzman Lambert, and I live in Hell's Kitchen. I have lived in my present address, a building who is owned by Mr. Steve Croman, for 26 years. I've lived in the neighborhood for 40 years. And I have witnessed the change in my neighborhood, in the city, and we are living a housing crisis. I understand that these smaller landlords feel that they cannot make a profit, but they would not be subjected to these raise in insurance and in the base of their taxes if the property values had not been raised in such a ridiculous way. And this has been done by people like Croman, who have used their predatory tactics to buy buildings that were rent stabilized, force people out of their homes, and increase the rent to the property in such a way. I pay about $1,200 for my apartment. The kids that were living in one of the market rate apartments after he bought that were fixed were paying $5,000. That man was talking about incentives. They have plenty of incentives to come into our city. We don't need to give them any more. We were here when nobody wanted to be here, when people ran out, when the federal government, because Ford decided that we were nobody, and they decided not to bail the city out. When everybody left the city, we stayed. We stayed when only the drug dealers, the prostitutes, and all the scourge of the city. These are not bad neighborhoods anymore. These are not neighborhoods that need to be invested in, because we invested in them already.
Thank you.
Hello.
I'm sorry, we're going to need the interpreter, I believe?
No, I'm going to interpret it for him.
Oh,
But I have the same essay, just...
Okay.
I'm just gonna do that.
So, Mr. Florencio?
Buenas tardes a todos y todas. Mi nombre es Rubén Florencio y represento al Movimiento por Justicia del Barrio. Somos una organización del este de Harlem. Somos una organización que lucha por vivienda digna y luchamos en contra del desplazamiento y desalojo de las comunidades de bajos recursos, sin importar nacionalidad, sexo, religión, color de piel. Tenemos un gran historial de lucha en contra de todo aquel que promueve el desalojo y desplazamiento. Esto incluye caseros, concejales y políticos. El día de hoy, 20 de junio, estamos aquí para decir no al aumento de renta. La vivienda accesible es indispensable para toda la comunidad de bajos recursos, obreros, para la gente que ya ha sido desplazada de sus países de origen. En la ciudad tenemos muchos problemas de vivienda de diferentes categorías, en donde los niños, familias, son expuestos a diferentes violaciones por parte de caseros, en donde la ciudad no actúa con responsabilidad y en todo caso se ve un pobre resultado. Y por el contrario, cada año nos quieren aumentar la renta bajo malas condiciones de vivienda. Prueba de ello es esta reunión pública que tenemos ahora en este momento. Están listos para aprobar los aumentos de contratos de 1 año y 2 años, sin tomar en cuenta la voz del pueblo, y favoreciendo los intereses de los dueños de edificios y el alcalde y demás políticos. Como organización y afectados directos de malas condiciones de vivienda, nos damos cuenta que la ciudad, políticos y caseros están promoviendo planes agresivos de desalojo y desplazamiento, diciéndonos que están construyendo vivienda accesible y barata para todo el pueblo, y en la práctica no es así. Nosotros no tenemos el poder adquisitivo que tienen los blancos u otros grupos sociales, pero vamos a continuar luchando y denunciando a todo aquel que promueve el desplazamiento y desalojo de nuestras viviendas. Y mientras tanto, no queremos aumento de renta, queremos que voten en contra del aumento de la renta ustedes, los integrantes de esta Junta. Gracias.
Gracias.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ruben, and I represent the Movement for Justice in El Barrio. We are an organization from East Harlem fighting for decent housing and fighting against displacement and eviction of poor communities regardless of nationality, sex, religion, skin color, etc. We have a long history of struggle against anyone who promotes eviction and displacement, namely landlords, counselors, and politicians. Today, June 20th, I am here to say no to the increase of rent. This is due to affordable housing being essential for low-income communities that have low-wage workers and for people who have already been displaced from their countries of origin. In the city, we have many housing problems of different categories where children and families are exposed to various violations by landlords and where the city does not act responsibly, which in every case ends with a poor result. Yet, every year they want to increase the rent under poor housing conditions. The proof is this public meeting where we have the members of this board ready to approach rent regulations by approving increases in contracts 1 to 2 years without taking into account the voice of the people and promoting the interests of building owners and the mayor and other politicians. As an organization and one directly affected by poor housing conditions, we realize that politicians and landlords are promoting aggressive plans of eviction and displacement, telling us they are building housing accessible and affordable to all people, and in practice, it is not. We do not have the purchasing power that whites have or other advantaged social groups. Nonetheless, we will continue fighting and denouncing anyone who promotes displacement and eviction of our homes. And while we do not want a rent increase, we want everyone to vote against the rent increase, all the members here today, and the regulatory board income. Thank you.
Thank you. I have George Fletcher, to be followed by Cora Percival. George Fletcher.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, my name is Jorge Fletcher, and I work for Housing Conservation Coordinators, and we're a tenants' rights organization that's been around for more than 45 years in the House Kitchen area. I'm reading testimony on behalf of one of our members. Hello, my name is Thuy Pham, and I'm here with Westside Neighborhood Alliance. I live at 225 West 23rd Street in Chelsea, and my landlord is Achilles Real Estate Management Company. I have lived there for over 15 years. As a rent-stabilized tenant, I cannot afford increase this year, and any increases will affect my home. Moreover, as the president of the Tenant Association from 2325 Chelsea, with almost 250 tenants, over the past 15 years, the increase that gradually and ultimately pushed the number of rent-stabilized tenants out of their homes. The landlord has imposed an air conditioner fee on rent-stabilized tenants, which further burdens them. The landlord has also offered preferential rents to rent-stabilized tenants, which further indicates no need for a rent increase. Meanwhile, the landlord cannot claim onerous repair costs where the market rate tenants are getting washers and dryers in their apartments with complete rewiring, while the electric system in rent-stabilized apartments have limited outlets as potential electrical hazards. Any increase on rent-stabilized tenants is an unnecessary increase and a mental and economic burden on rent-stabilized tenants. Thank you and good night, and no more increases.
Thank you. I have Cora Percival to be followed by Karen Braga.
Good afternoon, and thank
Good
you very
afternoon.
much. My name is Cora Percival. I live at Lenox Terrace, owned by Olnick Corporation, and I've been in my building for over 30-something years. And you've heard tonight much of what all of us, our concerns are. And I'm speaking on behalf of, I'm also a tenant leader in my building, on behalf of what I've heard and what I've seen. I am also a retired educator, and I have seen the impact of homelessness on children where they come to school with everything they own in their backpack, and what the residual outcome of that. And like everybody else, we're here to ask you to strongly consider a rent increase and a rent freeze. And when we look at the hardship of increasing rent, where the income of people like myself as a senior get paid once a year, there's no increase in our income. There is a choice of paying the light bill or paying rent. There are people that I'm aware of that both husband and mother work, but they sleep in their cars. They have children who are also sleeping in those cars, and that is insane. When I hear owners of building talk about they need the increase to maintain their building, it would seem to me that if you continually maintain your building on a continuous basis, the rent increase will not have anything to do with you maintaining your building. They will be maintained if that is your purpose, to have good living conditions for people where our rent is constantly going up, but our income is not. So we are begging you for the rent freeze.
Thank you. I have Karen Braga to be followed by Barbara Washington. Karen Braga? Ms. Braga? I'm going to put her name to the side for now. And I have Barbara Washington to be followed by Estella Moore. Ms. Washington? Ms. Washington? Okay, I'm going to put her name aside for now. I have Estella Moore to be followed by Roger Boykins. Estella Moore.
Stella.
Oh, Stella, I'm sorry.
Stella Moore.
Ms. Moore, welcome.
Good evening. I'm here on behalf of myself, of course. I'm here on behalf of myself and my husband, who is a disabled veteran. We're both retired. We live in Lenox Terrace, and we've been living there for a while, and it's a nice place to live. Only problem I have is every time I sign a lease, there's an increase. I'm constantly giving. I'm not getting anything back. Our income is fixed. It doesn't change. It stays the same. And my thought is, I think the rich are getting richer, and the poor are getting poorer. And that's the way it is in New York City, as we know. So I'm asking, this is my first time coming, and I'd like to thank tenants and neighbors and our Lenox Terrace Association for helping me and guiding me and encouraging me to come and speak. I don't know any of you. There's 8 million or so people living in New York City, and this is just one story I have. But I know that, excuse me, there are cuts I have to make in my income, in my household rather, to pay rent with the increases. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. I have Roger Boykins to be followed by Peter Lopez. Roger Boykins? Oh, hi. Good evening.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Roger
Oh,
Boykins.
just speaking to the mic, please.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Roger Boykins. I live at 208 West 151st Street. I'm a senior citizen, and with these rent increases, in my opinion, they should not be occurring. I personally experienced where I had a letter slid underneath my door, and it was a shock to me as a senior citizen that I had failed to pay the rent, in which I had paid the rent by U.S. Postal Money Order. The reason I'm presenting this is because I, in turn, went down to HBD on 3 occasions, and I showed them traces on the U.S. Postal Money Orders. Something needs to be done about these landlords that are presenting false accusations of the tenants. Something needs to be done where it's fraud by deception. Something needs to be done where it's landlord-tenant harassment. Something needs to be done about this matter. However, I was not anticipating on standing up before an audience of people and speak this evening. So I was not with a format this evening. I do have my proof in which I had satisfied my rent. I was brought before a judicial officer, which looked at my traces, U.S. money order traces, and said this matter is dismissed from the court. In my view, there should be litigations, lawsuits against these landlords in this matter. I wish to thank you all. Have a blessed evening.
Thank you. I have Peter Lopez to be followed by Jacob Milligan. Peter Lopez? Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you all for being here this evening. I just have a clear message to the landlords of the state of New York. They are creating a real...
Talking to the mic.
The landlords of the city of New York are creating a miscarriage of this own society. We have a major problems, and all the things you see and hear, all these people misplaced, is because the landlords are so greedy, they never get enough. And it's a major situation. You guys can see it even better than we. Because what happens is when we go to court, the landlord has his lawyer, and on top of that, he has the politicians to bribe. Gets the rent, gets the money, kick out the poor people, especially on the third age. They kick him out and say, you're no longer eligible to live in this building. But it's to increase the rent from $1,000 to $3,000. And they get away with the law. Sometimes even the judges sell themselves short to the landlord because $100,000 in the way to the pocket. I lived that several times because I work at a community center and I see it pretty often. I have a lady that was 83 years old with documents from 1974, month by month, paying her rent, and they want her out because she was paying $800 a month. And the apartment on the market value is $3,000. We are in a disgrace. We have on this month, April, came out a report that says in the city of New York, we have 61,782 homeless, including 14,826 homeless family, with 21,709 homeless children. sleeping in the city. This is screwing our own society on the name of money. It's a disgrace.
Thank you.
It's a disgrace in the city. We must stop this. We must do what has to be done to our society and stop looking in the way of making money.
Thank you.
This is very common, and it happens every day on our society, every day. And that's why you got all these people homeless in the street. It's not anything else but the politicians getting bribed by the lawyers and the landlord. It's a three-way game.
Thank you.
And there's no way that these tenants have the capacity to face it and fight it.
Thank you.
Because they play with the law. They play games. We got to stop this.
Thank you. I have Jacob Milligan to be followed by Terry Brooks.
Yes, thank you. I'm Jacob Milligan. I've been a performer in New York City for over 45 years. I'm professionally known as Tuck Milligan. My wife is also an actress, and like many actresses, she works part-time in catering and events companies, so our income is sporadic at best. I'm fortunate enough to be covered by Social Security and Medicare. However, my wife, being several years younger, will not be able to receive her benefits for at least another 10 to 13 years. I'm blessed to have a younger spouse. However, it creates an economic conundrum for us. Thank you. Our struggle now is between affordable care for my wife and paying rent. Consequently, we've been forced to go into debt in order to get the procedure she needed, and happily she is healthy again. However, we still are burdened with debt and health care costs. Now, any further increase added to our rent will create an even more heavy financial hardship on our household. And because of our borderline household income, we cannot qualify for SCREE, Medicaid, or even a subsidy for a decent Affordable Care Act plan. We love living in our building and our neighbors, and we become involved in the Tenants Association. We have created a community here, and we don't want to be forced to leave it. As an artist, my wife and I have contributed to the cultural vitality of the city. We don't own a car, so we're not adding to carbon emissions and thereby improving air quality, reducing instances of asthma and global warming, and we compost. All we need is affordable housing and health care, and you can take care of your part of that. Please vote for no increase of any kind.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have Terry Brooks to be followed by Deborah Elliott Bloodman. Terry Brooks? Terry Brooks? I have Deborah Elliott Bloodman to be followed by Greg Lee. Ms. Elliott Bloodman?
Hello, how's everybody doing?
Good, thank you.
Good. I'm going to come from my heart, and I'm going to share with you what I have experienced with Wavecrest Management. I live at 644 Riverside Drive. For 33 years, I raised my granddaughter, now she's 20. And just let me go backwards. Just Tuesday, after jury duty, I got home, got a letter. Wavecrest said HPD has found violations on the window when they got their $46 million MCI. That window, or those windows, they came to repair them 6 times at least. They did nothing. It's more draft coming in after the MCI than before. My closet, my hangers are bigger than my closet. They renovate the closet. The hanger, that means my clothing is sticking out of the closet because they butchered up everything that they touch. $46 million MCI. My kitchen floor does this, and I'm disabled, so that means I have to be very cautious when I go in and out my kitchen. My bathroom floor, they raised, and it has 6 different levels as per the Department of Buildings. Now, let me go back to the letter I got. Thank you. The letter I got stating that they wanted to come in, let them, this is what the letter said. Give them access to come in, like I don't let them come in. And if you don't give them access, Ms. Bloodman, I will have you back in court with a holdover again. By the way, I just left housing court with 6 years being in housing court with Wavecrest Management. 6 years, a senior citizen is in housing court. Nobody why is this lady here for 6 years straight? Nobody. Mark Levine doesn't do nothing. Gail Brewer, they have all my information. All the city officials from the state building to every office that covers my zip code, they do absolutely nothing. Somehow, somebody must be chumming with the board members in the building. Something is going on because I should not be harassed like this. Not even talking about my $14,000 rent overcharge. I don't have one court stipulation saying where $14,000 went. What month, what day, what hour.
Thank you.
So it's a lot of corruption going on, and Wavecrest should be penalized, not little old ladies. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Greg Lee to be followed by Jackson Fisher Ward. Mr. Lee?
Yes, I'm Mr. Greg Lee from Brooklyn County, also known as Kings County or Kingsborough. And I am also one of the low-income tenants. I'm a low-wage worker. I work part-time for DCAS on the Board of Elections. It's part-time. Again, I'm one of the low-wage workers, and I'm one of the tenants of one of the landlords on the worst landlords list, which is Shamco, like NYCHA. You all know Shamco and NYCHA are on the worst landlord list, along with others I don't remember offhand. And I've been wondering which is worse, Shamco and NYCHA. Oh, I didn't know. Anyway, there are two things that I most heavily wanted to get into. For the past several years, I've been getting depressed in a way about people who think like the landlords, who think we're supposed to always have money, give it to them when they want, as much as they want and as much as we ask. And then I have to worry about, what if I don't have it? And where am I going to get it from? Nobody wants that life. Nobody wants that life. And one of the things I hated about the 21st century culture is, inflation, everything, including rents, getting more and more expensive, so much more expensive, and then especially people who eventually will never afford it is people like me, low-incomers, low-wage workers, disabled, people raising children alone, single parents, etc. So people like me have no reason to like the 21st century culture, and if we can't afford it anyway, then what good is it? I also have to stress. All right, thank you. I'm almost finished. I also have to stress what I've been saying to some other people. Even though landlords are authority figures, landlords are not kings above the law. Authority figures are not kings above the law because they're authority figures. Just like how Catholic priests are not above the law.
Thank you.
Because more people have been wanting authority figures, including landlords, to be above the law and regarded as kings.
Thank you, Mr.
Well,
Lee.
remember what I insist. Landlords are not kings above the law. Thank you. Good night.
I'm sorry, Mr. Fisher Ward, I just need to make an announcement, and it'll need to be translated. Just 1 second. So we have a lot of people here, which is great. We have a lot of speakers, which is great. If you are here, but you have not yet signed up to speak, but you would like to speak, you can do so in the lobby at our desk. Your chance to sign up ends at 8, so you should go do that now. And we look forward to hearing from everybody. Thank you.
Queremos nuevamente mencionarles que si desea ser uno de los discursantes esta noche, tiene hasta las 8 de la noche para apuntarse en la mesa de registro que está atrás en la entrada para que se les pueda escuchar, y tenemos todas las intenciones de escuchar a todas las personas presentes, pero por favor apúntense cuanto antes. Gracias.
I'm sorry, and one clarification, they're actually in the back and waving their arms right now if you want them. They're not in the lobby.
Solo para esclarecerles, no están en el vestíbulo, sino que están atrás ahora y están haciéndole seña para que se puedan apuntar ahí atrás.
Gracias. Mr. Fisher Ward, sorry, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jackson. I'm here representing the Office of Assemblymember Harvey Epstein. I'm going to read selections from a letter that was co-signed by 30 of his Assembly colleagues that represent rent-stabilized constituents across the city. Each year, the board is charged with taking incredibly important actions that determine whether New York City's rent-stabilized tenants are able to stay in their homes. Thank you for all your work on behalf of over 1 million rent-stabilized tenants. Last year, we wrote to you to request that, short of a rent freeze, you only support the lowest possible increase to tenants' rents. Unfortunately, the subsequent approval of 1.5% and 2.5% increases for 1-year and 2-year leases, respectively, means that even more rent-stabilized tenants now struggle to pay their rents. The media described the increases as relatively modest, a characterization that belies the reality for so many tenants for whom any increase constitutes a threat to their ability to pay for basic necessities and to stay in their homes. The 2019 Income and Affordability Study shows that a majority of rent-stabilized tenants are rent-burdened, and a third are severely rent-burdened, meaning they pay 50% or more of their incomes towards rent. Rent-burdened tenants face serious difficulties meeting their everyday needs for nutritious food, health care, and education, and the health outcomes of children that live in rent-burdened households are worse than their non-rent-burdened counterparts, according to Pew researchers. On the other hand, landlords' net operating incomes are trending upwards, and according to this year's income and expenditure study, revenues exceeded operating costs in nearly all stabilized buildings, yielding the profits. The 2019 I&E study reports that the average rent-stabilized landlord spends 59 cents out of every dollar to operate a building, down from approximately 73 cents in 2005, when the cost-to-income ratio was at its peak. In other words, landlords are spending 20% less per dollar to run their buildings compared to 2005. In light of these data, we are once again writing to urge you to freeze rents or only support the lowest possible increase. We would like to express our disappointment and concern with the outcome of the preliminary vote, which approved a range of 0.05 to 2.75% increase on 1-year leases and 1.75 to 3.75% increase on 2-year leases. In our view, the board's data do not support a decision to increase rents. I'll leave it there. Thanks.
Thank you. I have Delsenia Glover to be followed by Ann Piero. Delsenia Glover? She left. Okay, thank you. I have Ann Piero to be followed by Julie Hanlon. Ann Piero?
Hi, thank you. I'm a president of a tenant association at 6 West 138th Street. We formed a tenant association because we had to. Our building was taken over by Coal Town Properties. They're known predatory landlords, and the first thing they did was try to get us out, so we got together. But before I read what I prepared, I want to address a couple of comments by the landlords made here. Most buy buildings without looking at the rent rolls. My landlord never looked at our property. He was talking about courtyards. There's no such thing. So he never even looked at the property, no less the rent rolls. And they paid too much for the building. So they did it to themselves if they are in any type of debt, because they got predatory equity. I hear landlords complain that they won't make repairs or have the money to make repairs or renovations, but I don't understand that either, because tenants pay for those repairs with MCIs and IAIs. So how are they losing money? They get write-offs and tenants pay the bills. It blows my mind. The repairs we get, like the woman before me, made conditions worse because they want us out. So they left my floor completely unlevel because they know I can't stand at my own sink anymore. I can't use half of my apartment. They just want us out, and that's what they do. So we didn't even take advantage of your 0% increase because we're afraid. So I pay more than 50% of my income on my rent. About 15 years ago, I was diagnosed with a rare muscle disorder. And since then, I cannot tell you how many times I've heard, take care of your health, it's the most important thing. I also know what it's like to be homeless, because I was. And I could tell you, the most important thing is a home. It's not your health. Because you cannot be healthy when you do not have a home or a roof over your head. Home security is healthy. Affordable rents keep us in our apartments. What remains unhealthy is for all rent-stabilized tenants in New York is the fact that landlords are making a 40 to 46% return on their investments. And their investments. That's a profit that no legal industry, none, not one legal industry enjoys. In the majority of cases, the profit, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, well, please, 0% increase. Keep me healthy, keep me in my home.
Thank you. I have Julie Hanlon to be followed by Raphael Schweizer.
Thank you, SRO Law Project. Helen Rosenthal's been a pillar in this campaign of ours as an SRO building fighting tenant harassment. Also the Harlem Legal Aid Society. Nobel Prize laureate Thomas Mann said that tolerance becomes a crime when applied to evil. And the evils of landlords that own SRO buildings, maybe Mr. Rosen, I think his name was, the fellow that spoke about his 3 SROs, maybe he's one of the exceptions. But my landlord, Jay Wartsky, one of the top 5 slumlords of the city, who has a criminal background, his manager, Roberto Goycochea, similar. These people have been on a relentless campaign of harassment that included, in 2015, in a petition that 46 tenants in my building signed, including air, poisoning our air. So we face the most harassment because we're considered the dumbest, the poorest, the most lazy people. A commissioner for the city in Helen's town hall with the mayor told me to my face, we don't help SRO tenants because you never unite. Sorry, when you can unite, we'll make available city resources. So we haven't seen the city resources because my building has menaced, harassed, beat women. Roberto Goycochea has been arrested for beating women in my building. I know them. I've witnessed people he's beat. The forms of criminal harassment just don't stop there in our petition that was ignored by the Tenant Task Force on Harassment that I went to. In 2016, New York State DEC issued air quality violations, finding illegal banned pesticide poison stored in our building by our manager, by our landlord. They paid fines, they admitted their guilt a year later. Then new violations came from city agencies, Department of Health, DEP, issuing violations on 2 floors where 2 tenants died complaining about fumes. And this, like the Holocaust of Germany, no one could imagine the heinous crimes that the Nazis did to persecute people. My landlord and his managing agent have managed successfully to elude the law.
Thank you.
I'm suing them in court right now. I had to go back to court because the DEC orders weren't obeyed by our manager.
Thank you.
And as a consequence, people are dying, people are getting sick. So please do not. Your tolerance of harassment by not freezing rent increases allows these kinds of criminals to flourish. You're enabling crime. Thank you.
I have Raphael Schweizer to be followed by Nancy Weaver. Raphael Schweizer. Okay. I have Nancy Weaver to be followed by Geronimo Jourdain. Nancy Weaver. Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen of the panel, I thank you so much for being. I thank the panel very much for their patience. This is the first time I've been in one of these groups, and I'm asking, really, I'll try to make it short. I came to find out about rent control, and because I've been paying a lot of the expenses of the MCI and all that stuff, and I pay more than half. I pay, but my whole salary goes towards my rent. I'm asking for a rollback for the expenses that we have, that rent control people have given over 10 years, practically, if you could consider that. And I thank you for being equitable, because nobody's wrong and nobody's right. This is a wonderful city. Thank you for the work you do.
Thank you. I have Geronimo Jourdain to be followed by Hercules Reed. Okay. I have Hercules Reed to be followed by Veronica Glasgow. Hercules Reed. I have Veronica Glasgow to be followed by Janine Ciariy. I'm sorry, Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Thank you.
My name is Hercules Reed, and I'm a community advocate, but most importantly, I am a tenant. I'm also the son of Jamaican migrants who are now homeowners and landlords in the state of New York. I grew up helping my parents oblige to their tenants, and today I stand before you as a tenant on behalf of the tenants, knowing I understand the plight of a landlord. For those of you who don't know, yesterday was Juneteenth, which commemorated a day when the following words were uttered. In accordance with the proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free. This involves an absolute equality of personal rights and right of property. Today, we stand before you 150 plus years later because we are clearly still enslaved. Minorities have been fueling the nation forward with our sweat and tears, and what do we get? Redlining, gerrymandering, and political pressure that is leaving people homeless and not able to own and maintain their properties every day. Despite housing being a right, there is a housing crisis in this town. We are here for our families, neighbors, and ourselves to say the rent is too damn high. We need rent to be rolled back and any increases maxed at 0%, but in a compromise no more than 2%. To the landlords in the buildings, you're fighting the wrong fight. To you, I say the same thing they tell us when our pockets are crying from the rising rent, cost of food, rising MTA fare, rising cost of tuition, stagnant wages. Let's not even talk about CUNY adjunct professors who make under $3,000 a course. A year has changed a lot, and you're gonna be all right. We've been suffering for long enough now, and now is your turn. It's time to scrape up your pennies and make ends meet just like your tenants. In closing, tenants and rent guideline board, we must stay vigilant and watch out for bad actor landlords that will now throw tantrums and allow the living conditions of the building to decline just to prove a point. Call them out, the fight continues, and we will be here for all New Yorkers.
I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win.
I'm going back to Brooklyn. You heard?
I have Veronica Glasgow to be followed by Janine Ciariy.
First off, I'd like to thank you all for coming to Harlem once again to give us a voice that people who would not normally come downtown have come out. Thank you. My name's Veronica Glasgow. I'm a resident of the Lenox Terrace complex in Harlem for 42 years. I retired from New York City HRA in 2011. I'm not eligible for SCREE or any other housing help. I pay over 50% of my income for rent. I'm a few dollars over for SCREE, and it's a real hardship on me to pay rent. I cannot afford a rent increase at this time. Landlords' net operating income went up 4.4% last year, yet I've been waiting for a replacement cabinet in my kitchen for over a year. RGB increases are not the only means in which rents go up. The year the landlords were given an 8% increase, I also received the MCI increase, which gave me a total increase of 14%. A 2% increase at this time is too much. This is why I'm begging you, vote for a rent rollback. We need a rollback. People, as I say, I worked for HRA. I saw the homeless, and I see the homeless has increased. Please, give people a chance to live.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'd just like to mention that registration has closed. It's after 8 o'clock now. Just so people know, we have another 44 speakers. So, I'm just going to try to keep people to the 2 minutes so that way everyone, including that 99th speaker of the night, gets an opportunity to speak. So I have Janine Ciariy next, and then I have Kenny Schaeffer, and to translate. Thank you.
Quería también mencionarle que ya son oficialmente las 8 de la noche, entonces la mesa de registro ya se ha cerrado, no tomaremos más nombres, pero quería que supieran que queremos darle tiempo a todo el mundo para que pueda hablar, así que por favor cuando pase adelante, por favor trate de hablar en esos 2 minutos para que todo el mundo tenga una oportunidad de hablar. Tenemos 44 discursantes aún por presentar esta noche. Gracias.
Gracias. Janine Ciariy.
Sorry. I stand before you today a 3-year rent-stabilized tenant. My family and I started out as an illegally destabilized tenant, and we are still fighting to get our legal regulated rent. Our landlord has illegally destabilized over 10 apartments in our building. Most of these apartments had unpermitted IAIs, bedrooms were added, walls were removed, nothing done with permits, usually done at night and over the weekend. And the landlord has now filed an MCI, double dipping the cost of all of this into the MCI. It's totally unconscionable. I have a son with XYY, autism, and hemophilia who uses a wheelchair. I am very busy, but I now spend my nights learning laws and how to keep our home affordable. I am now the tenant representative for our owner's MCI, claiming $850,000. Our response is already this big, if you can see this, over 500 pages. It is obscene how much of the application is falsified down to dates and cost, the things that are not even done that are listed in contracts. And some of the contractors' licenses aren't even valid. A lot of the work is not done or unfinished, and a lot of this is pictures of every single apartment every tenant has let me in. Our MCI would increase our unit $32.67 per room, and no one can afford this. In the New York State Assembly hearing, it was stated that 98% of MCIs get approved by DHCR with no oversight. Hopefully, we will be in the 2%. I am here today to state unequivocally, after many hours of research, that 1- and 2-year leases do not have to go up for 10 years, and it would be not even begin to cover the blatant, inflated, willfully falsified documents in these MCIs and IAIs. I recommend freezing the increases for years, putting together a committee to go over these costs and the applications, and seeing for yourself what tenants are living with, paying for, and then having their rent increased on top of this with stabilization.
Thank you.
It is important, one more sentence. It is important when considering these increases to take into consideration all the facts, all the increases that have been given to landlords with no oversight. It is important to consider this.
Thank you.
My story is one of thousands of rent-stabilized tenants in 5 boroughs and beyond. Please freeze these rents. Sorry, I waited 3 hours to say that. Had to get it in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have Kenny Schaeffer to be followed by Melissa Rodriguez.
Hello, my name is Kenny Schaeffer, Chair of Met Council on Housing, celebrating our 60th year as New York Citywide Tenant Union. The rent stabilization law, which creates the RGB, was enacted specifically to protect tenants from unjust, unreasonable, and oppressive rents. Its findings and declaration of emergency do not speak of any need to protect landlords who even then, as now, were demanding exorbitant and oppressive rent increases, unquote, but rather the need to forestall profiteering, speculation, and other disruptive practices tending to produce threats to public health, safety, and general welfare. There is certainly no presumption in the statute that rent should be increased every year during an acute housing affordability crisis of epic proportions. Section 510, which sets forth the role of the RGB, says that in determining whether or not rents shall be adjusted, the board should consider the economic condition of the residential real estate industry, as well as everything else. But your mandate and mission under the stabilization laws defined in the findings remains to protect tenants from oppressive rents, not to guarantee ever-increasing landlord profits, as the board has historically done, pushing rents and profits to their current exorbitant levels. Year after year, the RGB has made the affordability crisis worse by imposing additional increases based first on the mistaken view that their job was to protect landlord profits, and then by applying a misguided PIOC methodology that relies on speculative price increases and ignores the hard data of runaway profits setting new records every year. So sure, let's look at the condition of the real estate industry. What do we see? They cry poverty but won't open their books, and the data shows that after increasing 13 years in a row to a new record, profits have hit the astronomical level of 41.3% of every rent dollar going in the landlord's pockets or bank account. Meanwhile, low, moderate, and middle-income tenants continue to suffer an unprecedented affordability crisis. Owners claim that without even higher profits, they won't maintain their buildings, causing tenants to suffer and endangering the housing stock. This is nothing more than an empty threat to break the law. The Housing Maintenance Code, I'll wrap up. The Housing Maintenance Code, the Multiple Dwelling Law, and the Warranty of Habitability require owners to provide essential services, and if that makes a dent in their bloated profits, so be it. Public members, your job is to protect tenants from unaffordable rents. Please do it.
Thank you.
Quick
I have
question.
Melissa Rodriguez, to be followed by Dawn Jones. Oh, I'm sorry, there's a question.
Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about the new rent laws? I feel like we keep hearing over and over again that MCIs have ended, IIs, like all of this reform are going to crash the housing market. What are the wins that happened, and were they as broad and essential as we need them?
Right, so very briefly, given the hour, MCIs and IIs have not been ended. First of all, every MCI and IAI that's been previously approved that are parts of the unaffordable rents people are paying now remain on the books, and owners will continue to get additional increases. It's just limited in the amount they'll be able to. But even if they were completely done away with, the current level of rents is an affordability crisis of epic proportions. It doesn't matter if landlords won't get even higher profits in the future. The board needs to do a job of responding to this affordability crisis. The loopholes that were closed after 25 years of landlords having a field day is what drove them to the unaffordable rents they are now. Landlords, if their profits are a little bit less than 41 cents of every rent dollar, so be it. That's not a public problem. Thank you.
I have Melissa Rodriguez, to be followed by Dawn Jones.
Hi, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to be here and listen to us. And I'm clearly here because tenants need help. We really need your support with the rent increases and to take this seriously. It's an issue that's affected every single aspect of our society. It's affected people of all ages, religious backgrounds, and it's just clear to see. But I could only speak from my own perspective. I looked for housing on my own because I had to leave my apartment where I lived, personal situation. I don't have support. I'm single, and I'm currently supporting myself right now. When I just got my first apartment, I met a landlord, and I was obviously prey to that landlord. I didn't look through everything. I told him that's the max that I could pay. The landlord still increased the rent substantially every year. Now I'm now paying $300 increase in only 3 years. and I can't afford it, and it's really getting worse. The repairs haven't been done in the building. There's been mold. There's been all different types of different issues in the apartment, and this definitely needs to be changed. And I did apply for screed-free, and again, I'm encountering similar problems to the other people that we make a little bit too much for these programs, and once again, yeah, we ask you to really support our oh my gosh, the bills that were recently passed. There's still a lot that needs to be done, and we really ask that you would look through the paperwork and everything, and take tenants a little bit more in a priority case, because this is an issue that really has to be dealt with now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have Dawn Jones to be followed by Joanna Monge. Dawn Jones? That's not you? If you stand up, I'm going to think it's you. Dawn Jones, Joanna Monge? Joanna, okay, great. And then after Joanna, I have Luisa Perez.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm Joanna Madge, and I'm a lifelong New York City tenant and now a tenant organizer in Inwood and Washington Heights with Met Council on Housing. Today I come in front of you all to make a case for not increasing the rent, which to me is quite odd. You ask, why is that odd? Well, when we have over 89,000 people rapidly increasing that are homeless in New York City, when we have increasing amounts of people paying over 50% of their income in rent, when 94% of those people are low income, when almost 1 million city households are rent burdened, paying over 30% of their income to rent, when people do not have a secured increase in their wages, so why should landlords? When even under the new legislation, landlords are still expected to make profits off of the total amount of a major capital improvement, you can see how it just is really odd to me that is even up for question whether folks can afford to pay more in rent when the clear answer is no, we can't. Day in and day out, I talk with and meet with tenants living in a predatory equity landlord. His name is Louis Barbanel, Barbie Rose Buildings. Since this landlord bought their buildings, tenants who live in these buildings, who are lifelong tenants, have experienced extreme rent hikes through MCIs that they have to pay for, even though their individual units go untouched. These big corporations do not eat a break, tenants do. We can't even afford to pay what we pay now, so that's why I not only ask, but demand a rent rollback. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Luisa Perez to be followed by Thalitha Kumi. Welcome.
Sí. Buenas noches, mi nombre es Luisa Pérez.
Good evening. My name is Luisa Perez.
Vivo en el Alto Manhattan, un lugar donde ha sido desplazado bastante en este último tiempo.
I live in Upper Manhattan, where a lot of people have been displaced in recent years.
Estos últimos años, estos 3 últimos años más bien, hemos pasado una rezonificación y realmente nuestra comunidad ha sido bien abatida.
In these last 3 years, there has been a lot of rezoning going on in our community, and a lot of people have been affected by this severely.
He tenido la oportunidad en estos 3 años de escuchar bastante a mi vecino y ver cómo es la situación que hay en nuestra comunidad, porque la mayoría es de bajo ingreso.
I've been able to speak with many of my neighbors in the last 3 years, and I've been able to speak to them about what's going on because many of them are low income.
La renta ha aumentado muchísimo. Muchísimas de las personas tienen que pensar en sí. ¿Compro medicina, compro comida o pago renta? Realmente, muchos de mis compañeros están siendo desalojados de nuestros edificios.
The rent has been going up increasingly, and many of the people that I've spoken with have had to make the very difficult decision of deciding whether to buy medicine or food or to pay their rent. And this has been going on for quite some time now.
Porque el ingreso realmente que recibimos no nos alcanza para pagar la renta a la altura que está hoy en día. Nuestro Orlando se han apoderado realmente de todos nuestros edificios.
Because of course our incomes are not commensurate with the amount of rent that we're paying, and it's a travesty because the landlords have completely overrun the city and have decided to increase rent all over.
En la calle que yo vivo, Orlando compró todos los edificios de un solo lado y al otro lado de la calle todos los edificios que componen unos 13 edificios.
On my side of the street, the landlord has bought up all of the property, that is, all of the buildings, and that makes up a total amount of 13 buildings.
Han hecho todo lo posible por desplazar con diferentes maneras. Ha sido un acoso total para todos nuestros compañeros de nuestra comunidad. En nuestros edificios hay muchos apartamentos. Hay hasta 4 apartamentos vacíos en un solo edificio que ya las personas han tenido que marcharse.
They've done every single thing possible to displace people from our buildings. In many of the buildings in our area, there are buildings that have up to 4 apartments that are empty because they are too expensive for people to rent.
Desde luego ellos están felices de la vida porque están rompiendo los apartamentos completamente y haciéndolos nuevos totalmente para poder cobrar $2,500 y $3,000 de renta que nosotros no podemos pagar.
Gracias.
Of course, they're very happy because they're able to gut these apartments and remodel them so that they can then charge between $2,500 and $3,500, which they full well know we cannot afford.
Por esta razón, estoy hoy para decirles que por favor voten no, porque no aguantamos un aumento más de renta realmente en esta ciudad.
Gracias.
And for that very same reason, I'm here to say for you to please vote no, because we can no longer afford another rent increase in this city. Thank you.
Thank you.